Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 24 of the Giant Zone, where, of course, you've got your co-host, Steve the Banker.
What's going on?
And then you have yours truly, Carl Fly Guy. And then tonight, we have a special guest who I'll get to in a minute. But before we introduce him, I just want to remind everybody, if you can please continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel when you watch it there, or if you could just, if you're on YouTube and you can help us out by subscribing, we really appreciate that. And if you download our shows, please give us a 5-star rating. Those help just the same way that subscriptions on YouTube do. So whichever way you help out, we truly and gratefully appreciate your help and hope you continue to enjoy our show. With that, tonight we're joined by one of our favorite followers and a good friend, Sun Devil Rob, as we like to call him, from Twitter. So Rob, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I've been excited waiting for 23 episodes for my chance to be on. It seems like from the beginning we talked about it. Wish Carrie and Kat could have been here. Would have been kind of cool to have her on it, but very excited to be here.
We're glad to have you, and we've been kicking the tires on talking about having you on as well. So we're both really excited you're here.
Thank you.
So what we like to do, Rob, at the beginning of each show is just kind of get to know you a little bit. So give us a little background about you, how you became a Giant fan, Rob. How long, how it happened?
Well, I was a fan before the Joe Pisarcik incident, the original fumble at Miracle at the Meadowlands type of thing. So my dad was a huge fan. My dad goes back to the Polo Grounds where if you were in a wheelchair, you could get in for free. So my dad pushed his friend in a wheelchair so they got to sit on the field. And in fact, something great happened, and the guy in the wheelchair stood up, and my dad went, "Sit down." So they were from the Bronx. My dad and mom were from the Bronx, lived around the corner from the stadium. So it's Yankees, Giants, Rangers, and at the time it was the Knicks. So we're all huge fans from 76 to 86. We had season tickets to the Giants at the old Meadowlands. My dad's brother would actually get these 2 tickets. He's a Jets fan, so he'd sell them to my dad. So we were 50-yard line behind the visiting bench.
Nice. And what about that story about the guy standing up in the wheelchair is pretty good.
I love it.
What about traditions? Do you have any Giant related or game day traditions that you follow?
I don't know if you'd call it a tradition, but my middle brother and I will text normally the day of a game, "Let's go Giants," to each other. We do it for the Yankees and Rangers. And then on game day, we text each other, and we try to be as synced up as possible, not pausing the game, but as possible without blowing touchdowns and spoiling. And as my son would say, being a spoiler. And now my son and I do it. My son and I, all during these games, will text each other, good things, bad things, whatever. But that's kind of really the only game day tradition.
Yeah, but that's fun stuff. I mean, when you had those family traditions, that's great stuff. It's great memories too.
Absolutely. I mean, when the Giants made their first Super Bowl in '86, I was at the NFC Championship game against the Redskins. In fact, Dexter Manley, if you remember that game, Dexter Manley was going nuts on the sideline because we were chanting his name. And the guy wasn't the very brightest guy in the world. And we really got under his skin. In fact, there were a couple of times I thought he was going to hurl his helmet at one of us.
Wow. If I remember correctly, didn't Jay Schrader collapse at the end of that game just from being hit so much?
I think you're right. I think he did. I mean, he was battered.
Yeah.
I mean, he really was.
They took the field knowing they were going to win that day. They really did. I mean, they weren't going to lose that game.
And Washington had a hell of a team.
Yeah.
Schrader had a cannon of an arm. Dexter Manley, Charles Mann. I mean, their running game, the Hogs. But we were. I mean, it was our destiny.
Oh, absolutely. That game was tremendous. And if you remember, the Giants won the coin toss and put their defense on the field first.
Was it a win?
Yep. And then Washington took the ball in the second half, and because they didn't defer at that time, they either took the ball or they played defense. They didn't defer, and then they had to win in their favor both the second and fourth quarters, I believe, So they really took advantage of that. And
They had,
traded forward.
I think the Redskins had the three amigos already at that point, right? Those three wide receivers.
Yeah, because Clark, I think, dropped the ball early in the game that
Mhm.
could have changed the outcome of the game. And after that play, they didn't have any real chance to score.
Yeah.
That game will always be special to me because it was played on my birthday, January 11th.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's
Never
a fun
forget
fact.
that. Yep. Never forget that. All right. So good stuff, Rob. We appreciate that. So let's kind of jump into it here. We know you have some questions prepared. So why don't you fire away?
All right. And I know that you've done, 23 shows. It's getting close to training camp. So you probably heard all these, but I'm going to look at it because I watched show 23 and you talked about Wink's defense, but you really talked about it from the cornerback perspective. I'm going to try to look at it from, say, the front line perspective, and front seven, basically, because you have so many guys, I think, that could contribute that when we talk about rookies, it might impact Thibodeau's rookie numbers.
Sure.
I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Like,
Steve, why don't
do you see?
you get started, Steve? Why don't you kick this one off?
I know we've talked about it before, but I appreciate you getting a little more granular. This is probably one of the two or three things I get most excited about as we approach camp and we think about the upcoming season. I mean, everybody's heard. I'm just so excited about Wink, and we love Patrick Graham, good man, smart, made the best out of his tough situation. A bend don't break defense, but my God, I'm so excited. Listen, I got three observations in response to your specific question. The first is his ability to develop front seven players, specifically linebackers, outside linebackers, and even more specifically pass rushers. When we look at his tenure in Baltimore, he was the linebackers coach first. I think most people now know that, 2012 to 2017. And then he was promoted to defensive coordinator in 2018. So he was linebackers coach. He actually started developing some really talented players. They won a Super Bowl in 2013, as we know. And then he was defensive coordinator. Zadarius Smith, linebacker taken in the 4th round in 2015. We all know he became a phenomenal pass rusher. Eventually, he got so good, Green Bay stole him in free agency and they took him away. Matt Judon, 5th round player in 2016. Became a great all-around outside backer. He could rush the passer, but he was a 3-down player. What happened? We all know he went to New England and had his best year as sacks. Well, that would never have happened if he wasn't developed in Baltimore. And then more recently, in 2017, Tyus Bowser, 2nd round pick. Okay, not 4th or 5th, but a guy wasn't a top 30. He was picked in the 2nd round. Well, he only led the team last year in sacks. He's since developed. So I get excited when I think about him and the staff that he puts together as DC and the guys that we've already drafted, not just this year and prior years. So I'm not worried about Aziz. I'm not worried about Kayvon. I'm thinking about the other guys and maximizing that talent. I think about Ellison Smith, 6'7", 245 when he was drafted, but this kid's turned into a beast. By all accounts, he's put on another like 15 pounds of muscle on that 6'7" frame. He was a round 4 pick 2 years ago, right? Tomon Fox, undrafted free agent, but he was like 3rd in the ACC last year in sacks, played for UNC. He might be a diamond in the rough, at least stash him away on the practice squad. That's the type of kid you can develop. And Quincy Rochette, we all know about Quincy Rochette. Took him from Pittsburgh. He actually flashed for us quite a few times. Pittsburgh didn't want to lose him. They made a mistake. This is the type of thing that gets me excited because we have not done a good job developing young players, developing depth in-house. And when you do that, that allows you to be more flexible with your salary cap because you're not constantly signing free agents. So that's number one. I don't think that's getting us enough talk as people should be. I think people kind of overlooking, scheme. We'll get to that. But I think people don't understand how good he and the staff that he puts together are at developing that specific position. And it's position, if we're being honest, we haven't really had developed since the late 90s, early 2000s, right? With the whole NASCAR. My observation number 2, the most important stat that's common to all Super Bowl defenses. You guys know what that is? If you want to take a guess.
Pressure on the quarterback.
The one thing that most Super Bowl champions on the defensive side of the ball have in common. 48 of the 55 Super Bowl champs ranked in the top 10 the year they won in scoring defense. Now, the cool thing is there's a lot of things we can debate about. How do you score on defense? Well, you pressure the quarterback. Yeah, but is it because you strip sack him? Is it because he fumbles and you run it in? Is it because you put pressure on the quarterback and then he throws an interception? There's a lot of things that happen, but over and over in the offseason, since he's become our defensive coordinator, we've all seen the videos on YouTube and in the newspapers, the quotes, pressure breaks pipes. That's what he has. So my second observation is, I think that it's not just his scheme. What he allows guys to do and what this is going to do for our players is, instead of taking a defensive scheme that the challenge for the players is post snap. Think about it. Those guys had to, last year and the year before, had to read the defense. They didn't always know where the offensive player was going to go. And then post snap, they had to think, what's my zone? Can I rely on the other guy? He's taking that away by simplifying it. He's saying, listen, it's all going to be pre-snap. I'm going to make the call. And then you guys need to, and he's talked about how important it is they need to learn that defensive playbook. Now and he's talked about this. There's been some sound bites of him yelling at the guys. He just wants them to play fast, because when you don't have to think as much post snap, they can be fast. They can be instinctive. Let the players play that way. And I think taking away some of the mental lapses and the challenges of the defense, this is the year to transition to do that. And the reason I say that, and so this is my second observation, going back to some things I've said over the last number of shows. Carl, you've heard me say this. I'm worried about when we play a top 10 or maybe even a top 15 quarterback. Well, I looked at our schedule. This is my personal opinion. I think there's 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks of all the teams we're going to play that are bona fide top 10, maybe top 15. Aaron Rodgers, I know we can argue all we want about Kirk Cousins, but the guy puts up numbers and he's part of a phenomenal offensive scheme. He's going to have an even better offensive coach now. And maybe Dak. Half the league loves Dak. Most of us Giants fans don't respect or can't stand him. But if you're going to do this and you're going to have a pressure defense, this is the season to do it. When you don't have all the great quarterbacks lined up. We're not playing Russell Wilson. We're not playing Tom Brady. We're not playing Justin Herbert. We're not playing Joe Burrow. So this is, to me, the season to do it. And the final observation is, everybody's been talking about, to your point, yeah, but, I don't know how good he's going to be. Is this going to be like James Betcher? I heard there was some talk like this last week on some other podcasts about, well, is it going to be another James Betcher? Time out. I'll make it quick and then we'll move on. I want to hear what Carl has to say. Last year, the Ravens were number 1 in football in rush defense. He just talked about it in their most recent camp. There's been some videos put online about the conversations he's had in the meeting room with all the players. He said, you want to be physical. He said in the video, if you want to be physical, stop the run first. I don't care what anybody says. It's a passing league, but you got to stop the run. They were number 1 last year in the league in rush defense. They were 8-3 when Lamar got hurt. People talk about, oh, but he was terrible last year and he lost his corners and he got exposed. Excuse me. They lost all their games after Lamar got hurt. They actually had a good backup, don't get me wrong, but it's not like the wheels fell off the bus and he became a terrible defensive coordinator. So I just want to put that in perspective. We are getting a phenomenal defensive coordinator that's been proven. He can develop talent. He understands how to make the game fast, instinctive, and quite frankly, as fans, fun. Pressure breaks pipes. I think there's going to be tons of turnovers. I'm excited. I think we have the chance to be, if not a top 10, at least a top 15 defense. And let me tell you, a lot of Super Bowl champions didn't necessarily have a top 5 or top 10 defense in many categories. The only one is scoring. And I think that's what we're going to see a big change this year. We're going to have a defense that's going to be able to also score the ball.
I agree.
Interesting. My approach to this question, Rob, was it kind of plays into what we discussed on last week's show about the secondary. Wink has been in this league long enough to understand, to recognize weaknesses and to how can I hide them? How can I work with them? So on and so forth. So I think our front 3 is good. I love the talent and the depth we now have at linebacker. And I think that is what's really going to make the difference with this defense. we've got a lot of speed at linebacker now. We've got a lot of young talent. We've got linebackers that can go sideline to sideline now, that can even cover if necessary. So we've got a little mix there of linebackers that can pressure and linebackers that can cover. So I think, without going and regurgitating a lot of what Steve said, I think he's going to get very creative with that group, with the linebacking group. The front three is what it is. Yes, I agree with Steve. You factor in Ellison Smith. You can rest some of your bodies. You could do different things with that front rotation. I think the linebacker and the depth of the linebackers is going to be the key to less exposure to the youth that we have in our secondary, is the best way I could say it. Steve said he thinks we can be hopefully a top 10, maybe a top 15. I think that's a great landing spot. Top 10 would be phenomenal. I think top 15, I think, is a very good landing spot for where I expect this defense to be. And one thing, Steve, that you said, that I just, we've seen it here with previous Super Bowl teams, that as the season went on, the team came together and played their best ball at the end of the season. And I've said it, and Steve, you've heard me say it on a couple shows. I've just got the feeling with this team that we may struggle early, but by the end of the season, I expect this team on both sides of the balls to really be coming into their own, coming together, playing more as a cohesive unit. And look, I'm not predicting Super Bowl run, but I think that they're going to be, as the season goes on, they're going to be one of those teams on the schedule that teams are going to look at and say, that's not an easy game. Including the Eagles. Those games, I think, are going to be, I hope, are going to be wars when we play them. So that's my take on the defense. But what do you think? Because you brought up the question.
When I heard that they were not going to retain Graham, my first thought was Wink. I wanted Wink because it was the polar opposite of what we've had and had to deal with, and the lack of 3 and outs because of the bend don't break defense. That defense by Graham was just strictly set up to work between the 20s. Once they get to the 20, they play tighter defense, and you can, because there's less field to cover. Mm-hmm. So with Wink, I don't care about the zero blitzes. I honestly don't. I love zero blitzes because it creates chaos. And when I didn't play football any type of competitive, but I played flag, and I was better at, I like the defensive side of the ball a lot better. I like the chaos that the defense could create, because the defense could move around. The defense could do whatever they want at the line of scrimmage. The offense has to stay put. So with this speed, and there's 2 guys, one's a rookie, one's been there, I think maybe second or third year. Darren Beavers, I can't wait to see this kid from Cincinnati play. I mean, sideline to sideline, and also rush the passer. So he's one that I'm excited to see. And Carter Coughlin, if I'm not mistaken, isn't he built not maybe as tall as Ellison Smith, but aren't they built similar as the style of play, coming off the edge, long arms, long wingspan? But he's a guy, Carter Coughlin, I think, has kind of been buried. And if he's not around anymore, then I've missed something. But I liked him last year, and I just wish he would have gotten a little bit more opportunity. But Wink is my guy as far as who I wanted as the defensive coordinator, and I think he's assembled a great talent pool to work with.
I don't disagree with you. So right now, I'm looking at a depth chart, and Carter Coughlin is the number 3 middle linebacker behind both Blake Martinez and Darren Beavers. That says a lot about what they think about Beavers.
Right.
So, but he's going to get on the field. I would think he's definitely going to be.
He made special teams. He was definitely a factor. I guess he played a little bit more last year because with Martinez being out. Right. We don't know what we're going to get from Martinez, and right. Beavers still being a rookie. I'm excited about everybody on that defense. Yeah. No more than McKinney. Xavier McKinney is going to flourish in this type of defense.
Yep.
I think that's where it's going to get fascinating, not to go on a tangent, but you brought up some of the backups. Like Cam Brown is literally one of our top, at least since he's been on the team, one of our top 2 or 3 special teams players, but the guy's not a starting linebacker. He's not even a backup linebacker at this point.
Right.
So it'll be fascinating also for me to see which of those front seven players make the team, specifically the linebacker group, middle and outside. Like some of those guys, we may like them as fans, like, oh yeah, just give it another year or two. I'd like them to develop. Yeah, but what if they don't contribute on specials? Like.
Right.
Absolutely.
Our outside linebacker depth is Aziz Ojolari, Ellison Smith, Quincy Rochette, and then Tomon Fox. When was the last time we all felt that we had that level of depth at outside linebacker? Right?
I can't remember the last time they had any linebackers that were worth anything other than Blake Martinez.
Exactly. Yeah. So, there's a lot to be excited about on that side of the ball coming into camp this year. There really is. What else do you have for us, Rob?
All right. This is kind of like a two-parter. Will Saquon return to form? And how many touches per game do you see him getting? And the reason I ask that is his rookie year and then 2019, he had 352 touches in his rookie year for 28 total yards. Then in 2019, he had 269 for 1,441. So he's early in his career, he was getting the touches, and that's both running the ball and receiving, because he had 52 receptions in 2019. He had 91 as a rookie.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
So what can he do in this type of offense if he's given that many touches?
Well, first of all, stay healthy. But look, this is probably one of the best offensive lines he's ever been running behind since he's been pro. Okay, I'll clarify it that way. So they've said, both Daboll and Shane both said that they want to run the ball, and as I was going through, and Steve, you remember Daboll's starting offenses when he was the offensive coordinator in Cleveland, when he was the offensive coordinator in Kansas City, when the offensive coordinator in Miami. He had running backs. He had Peyton Hillis went over 1,000 yards. He had Reggie Bush, couldn't think of his first name, went over 1,000 yards.
Yep.
And he had Jamal Charles, I believe it was, in Kansas City, went over 1,000 yards. So I think they're going to use Saquon more. Because it's also, if he's doing well, it's going to take pressure off Daniel Jones. So, and that opens up the entire field then. If they're running the ball, it opens up everything in the offense. So I see somewhere, I'm looking at rushing attempts only in his first 2 years, 2018 at 261, 2019 at 217. I think somewhere in that 200 attempts, again, if he's healthy, is not too far-fetched. 162 last year, they had to throw the ball more. He was hurt a little bit. So, factoring that into it. So I think that 200 plus range, somewhere in there, I think is attainable. Yards or catches, let's put it this way, catches. He's going to use them out of the backfield more, obviously. 50 to 60 catches out of the backfield, I think is a very good possibility, given the other weapons that are now on this offense. Kadarius Toney, Wendell Robinson, hopefully Galladay plays up to his billing as well. So they're not going to have to focus as much on Saquon out of the backfield, but he's a decoy if nothing else. So again, somewhere 200 carries, 50 to 60 catches. That's where I see him. What do you guys think?
So I think four distinct things when I think about this. He's been in the league for a while. This is going into his fifth year now, right? So there's enough tape that these are obviously brilliant coaches. They know his strengths. They know his weaknesses. He's one of the worst pass blocking running backs in the entire NFL, but he's also literally the most explosive, other than maybe Cheetah or what's his name in San Francisco coming out of the backfield. Like, he's the most. Now, what else do we know? He's not a runner between the tackles. Now, maybe that's unfair to him because he didn't exactly have great, even satisfactory interior blocking. We were perhaps the worst interior offensive line in all of football. Not perhaps, we were. So maybe that's not fair. But I think historically he's not. That's not his strength. Regardless, he's not the type of running back. He jukes a little bit. He looks for a hole, but he finds that opening maybe between the guard and the tackle, and he's gone. That's a touchdown. So there's a lot of ways to quote unquote run the ball. We know his strengths. We know his weaknesses. I think they're gonna get more creative, and that leads to my next thought, which is I think 2018 is the roadmap. 91 receptions, 1,300 yards rush, over 1,300 yards rushing. To answer your question, I want to see the same exact thing. I think that would it be 75 receptions, not 91? Okay, whatever. Who cares? The point being, I think there's going to be heavy doses of him. Even if he's not the first option, a safety valve, he's a hell of a safety valve, right? I mean, Saquon Barkley in the flat. So I think there's going to be double dose of both every single game. I think Carl hit the nail on the head. Health, of course, is most important, but I think at least on paper, he's going to have the best offensive line he's had. And the third point was ACL. ACL takes time, right? So I think last year he probably wasn't himself. And I think we now know that. He talked about that even. So he's 2 years removed. We know what the roadmap is. There's enough tape. They know what his strengths, they know what his weaknesses are. Now it's their job to get creative and put him in a position to succeed. And then my final thought was, they said he shined in the early June camp. And when they interviewed him, he said one of the things that really excites him is that, and they talked about this, that it's something they're doing is they're talking to all the players about their favorite plays and even going back to college. He specifically talked about the fact that they sat down in the offseason, went back to what he did at Penn State, where he had success, what he did well, and they're looking to replicate some of that. So I think, again, knock on wood, he's healthy and our offensive line's healthy. I think he's going to have a phenomenal year. And I hope and I think that this time next year, the question for coming into the offseason next year is going to be, what do they do with him? Do they try to re-sign him or do they let him walk for compensation? So that'll be a good problem to have. That'll mean he'll have had a great year.
Correct. And I'm in agreement with you. I was looking at the rookie numbers and I'm thinking, there's no reason with this offense he can't duplicate that.
Right.
And or even better it, because with the better offensive line, when he had it for the 2 years, he stayed healthy. Bad offensive line, got hurt because he was dancing more. Who knows? It was a fluke incident, non-contact, if I remember, in Chicago. I don't think it was it a contact injury? I thought he just pulled up lame.
I think it was cutting when it popped.
So,
Yeah.
and like we talked about grass versus turf, and I know the Meadowlands or MetLife has horrible turf, but I just think that if he gets the blocking, and you said second year removed, he has more confidence. He may not dance as much. Maybe he breaks a few, and everybody puts the injury fear behind them.
Look, we were talking earlier about the championship teams in 86, et cetera. Look what OJ Anderson did. They thought he was done. They thought he was an old running back at 24, 25, 26 years old. And the guy's like 31 years old, has become Super Bowl MVP or whatever. I mean,
Absolutely.
And he's a very different running back than OJ was. OJ was power and, two different running backs, different days, different times back then, but same idea, right? Like he's not done. The kid's an unbelievable talent.
But part of the equation with Saquon is going to be, and you just said in closing, if we can all put the injury behind him, let's hope he can put the injury behind him.
Right.
Someone very well pointed out to me one time that it's also mental. And he's got to have the confidence in the knee that he can do what he does best again. So that's another thing that we need to kind of keep in mind is where's his head? Mm-hmm. So just FYI.
I agree with that.
What else do you have, Rob?
All right. What rookie will have the biggest overall impact on this team?
Ooh, Carl, I'll let you take that this time.
Okay. I thought about this and Evan Neal, and I'm going to say why. All right. Look, everybody's like, we got Thibodeau 5. It's great. We got a defense with swagger. Okay, great. how long have we been begging for an offensive line? We've had the left tackle. We've got the right tackle. Okay. We've got a brand new line. If Evan Neal steps up and plays Evan Neal football, I think everything we just talked about with Saquon Barkley goes to a higher level. All right. That's also going to help Daniel Jones progress if he's not running for his life. All right. So, and look, there's some, we could sit here, we could say Wan'Dale Robinson, we can make cases for the guys on defense. I'm telling you, we've been saying all off season, this is the year to rebuild the foundation, build it from the ground up. If Evan Neal steps up and if he's our Tristan Wirfs and blah, 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 I'm telling you, that's going to solidify the entire offensive line. And the offensive line, and I've said it before, is the engine that makes that entire team run. So that's why I think if he steps up and has a good year, we're off to the races. Anything is possible. What do you guys think? Go ahead, Rob. You threw it out there. We'll let you go second this time.
You actually, if you see, I put Evan Neal and Daniel Bellinger. Those are the two that I put because how long have we been waiting for a tight end that could block, that didn't have stone hands, or a tight end that could catch the ball but couldn't block? He could do it all. So this is a kid that kind of a little bit under the radar, but not under the radar. And I think that if he could give Daniel Jones that outlet of a tight end that is reliable, plus also opening holes for Saquon, sometimes maybe next to Evan Neal, you'll have the rookie wall there. And I think that, Daniel Jones could take that next step. Steve?
Carl took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, without hesitation, it's Evan Neal. Evan Neal, listen, I wanted the Giants in the draft where Chicago took the defensive end and Tennessee jumped up and took Jack Conklin.
Oh, God.
Kid made the Pro Bowl. Rashawn Slater we wanted Rashawn Slater. He made the Pro Bowl. I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but I think he's more talented than both were their rookie years. I think he's more talented than Tristan Wirfs was. And they're not putting him at left tackle, right? I think this kid's a Pro Bowl caliber player, potentially coming into the league. I think he is. And that's not to say he doesn't have stuff to work on, but that's the type of kid he's going to be. And of course, at top 10 pick, you should be talking about your draft pick that way, right? Somebody who potentially could be a Pro Bowler. So it's nothing, but I'll say it here. I made a bold prediction early in the offseason that I wanted Glowinski signed. I didn't hear anybody else say it, and I was right. I think Neal will make a Pro Bowl his rookie year. And I think that one of the other reasons it's so rare for rookies to make a Pro Bowl is because they hit that rookie wall. I think of all of our rookies, and I agree with you, our tight end I'm so excited about. Obviously, Kayvon is going to be a man-child at times, but I think at times he's going to disappear. He is the only one who has a history of staying healthy, and I think will not hit that rookie wall. So, and think about it. If you're going to make a Pro Bowl, you better not hit a rookie wall as a rookie. You better be strong and finish out the season strong. I think he's that good.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. It would have been boring if we all said Evan Neal.
But you know what? Think about it. We're all sitting here pretty much saying, Evan Neal is going to be a great player, hopefully a Pro Bowl player. When was the last time we all sat here talking about the Giants' offensive line, and we already had the two bookend tackles in place?
Oh, this has the chance to finally be a team. Yeah, I don't want to jinx it.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I don't expect the Super Bowl run this year, but if this is all if this plays out the way we all hope and expect it to, that Super Bowl run is in our future again.
Look, temper it with this. And I said this once or twice in the last 5-6 weeks, guys. they will, mark my words, they will run a more plain vanilla offense the first 3, 4, 5 weeks. And we need to be okay with that. And they're going to try to win. Because remember, we talked about it the last couple weeks. That first part of the season is the softer part of the schedule. Like we need to try to come. I mean, I know we'll get to that, Robin. We're looking forward to your predictions. but I truly believe, Carl, you said the word mental with Saquon, and I think it applies to the team as a whole. And that's one of the other things I'm excited about this coaching staff is they really seem to have a good handle on tempo and the pulse of the team. And I know we said that in the early days of Joe Judge. Shame on us. Like, we love Joe Judge in the beginning, especially that first season. But these guys really seem to be letting these kids have fun. Obviously, it's a new staff. It's a new season. Winning cures all. But I think they're going to be a little bit more plain vanilla in the beginning. They're going to establish the run. They're not going to show all their bag of tricks. They're going to do an install, but it takes time, especially one of the 2 or 3 youngest teams in football, right? It takes time. It's going to take time for these kids to learn. A lot of free agents we brought in, but man, if that offensive line, guys, can gel after 3, 4, 5 games, maybe, then we're going to have some fun. And then the other thing is, we've heard this on a few other podcasts recently. Wandale Robinson, man, is going to be a weapon for us.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's again, we could sit here and get old, and I know we're all jacked up. And Steve, you were talking about the coaching staff. So far, you see these practice, everything is upbeat. Judge was yelling at guys and screaming. We haven't seen that yet. These guys are upbeat. They're positive. It's reinforced when the players seem to be enjoying playing for them. I mean, it's nice to see again as a fan. It's really nice to have, and I say it every show, hope.
And the front office, you have a front office that no matter how much we like Judge, we all know what that front office was. It was like a black cloud. It's like, we're all like, well, but we got Joe Judge. We have a front office now that seems to get it. I think that when you talk about culture, and we get so sick of it sometimes, it doesn't start with the head coach. It actually starts above. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be fascinating.
I agree.
Yeah, we've got a front office that's now in tune with the game again, not behind the game. So,
but one thing that Wink has talked about, and you talked about it, Steve, was stopping the run. Historically, the Giant defenses, they stop the run. Yes, we haven't stopped the run the last few years with the bend don't break defense like the previous teams that we're used to, that when we're stopping the run, we know we have a shot to go to the Super Bowl. And that's what he's going to bring back that we were sorely lacking.
Yep. And I saw a clip somewhere just recently where he was talking to Mike Kafka. And he said to Kafka, "Are you going to be aggressive?" And Kafka said, "Yeah, we're going to be aggressive." And Wink just looked at me and said, "We're going to be as aggressive as hell."
Yeah, that was the Giants.com video that I was talking about.
That was great.
Loved it.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, I was ready to just put the pads on and start playing for him myself. I mean, it was great to see.
That's right.
All right. So yeah, that wouldn't have worked out well though. So anyway, okay. So let's have some fun here, Rob, and let's go through the schedule. So I'll give you the week and I'll give you the opponent. Then you give us your thoughts. Okay.
Okay.
Week 1 at Tennessee.
That's an L. That's a good team with a new offense, new defense. I think it'll be a tough putt coming out of the gate.
Yeah. And that's it. We're catching them too early.
Exactly.
Right.
I think that's a team you want to catch later just to see how far your team has come.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Week 2 home opener against Carolina.
That's a win. I don't care if it's Baker Mayfield or who's the Jet castoff that used to play for USC. It's Sam Darnold. That's a W for the Giants. They need that game.
Week 3, Monday night at home versus Dallas.
Now, you guys will probably be more on top of this than me. I'm going to say it's an L because it seems in this series, they play better on the road. They play better in Dallas. So I think that this is an L. It's Monday night. They suck on Monday night. Oh, can I say that? And also it's still early in the season. They're still going to be kind of vanilla, like Steven talked about with the offense, and defense is still coming together.
Week 4, home versus Chicago.
They've got to have that W. That's the W. If they don't get that W, it's a lot like the Carolina, where also the W is going to come from, especially early on.
Week 5 in London versus Green Bay.
This is one of the teams that will expose the Giant defense, especially only 5 weeks in. That's an L right there.
Yeah.
Week 6, fun game here. Home versus Baltimore.
It will be a fun game, but I think it'll be a little bit more fun for Baltimore. I think this is another quarterback that might expose us with, especially since he is familiar with Wink's system, even though it's different. It might be slightly different. So I have an L for this game.
Running quarterbacks just scare me. We never do well. Historically, don't do well against running quarterbacks. Week 7 at Jacksonville.
This starts a string. I won't tell you how long it will last, but this starts a string of W's. They're going to have a W there.
Okay. Let's see. Week 8 at Seattle.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't they play Seattle last year?
2 years ago, and they
2 years ago, and they beat him with Colt McCoy.
They beat him with the defense, is what they beat him with.
But this is a worse team than that team at that time. So that's a W. That's a big W. In fact, that's a game that, when is October 30th? That's a game that I might actually try to fly up to Seattle if things work out to actually see that game. That'd be a fun game to fly up to.
Do it.
Okay. So week 9 is a bye.
They won't lose there. They won't lose on their bye week.
I can't give you that one, Rob. Let's try. So week 10 coming off the bye, home versus Houston.
That's a W.
Week 11, home versus Detroit.
They can't lose to Jared Goff at home. That's a W.
I just have a sneaky suspicion Detroit's going to be better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. So week 12, okay, Rob, here you go. Big boy pants time. Week 12, Thanksgiving Day, national TV at Dallas.
Kayvon's going to have a monster game. Giants are going to get a W there. They're going to upset the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day because their defense is going to be coming together. Their offense is less vanilla, and they're going to take that W.
Rob, I said the same exact thing as you. I said we're going to lose at home against Dallas because we seem to do that. And I said, F Dallas. We're going to go down there and kick their tuchus.
Yep, I agree.
I love when he starts cursing in Yiddish.
My wife uses tuchus all the time, so I'm familiar with it. I'm Jewish too, but my mom and my wife are the same person when it comes to speaking Yiddish. They speak the same words.
There you go. Mishpacha.
Yes.
All right. So week, excuse me.
Carl's like, I need the meatballs. I need the marinara and the
And he
meatballs.
cracks me up every week.
I'll bring you some gabagool.
Leave the Italian to me, Steve. Please. All right. Week 13, home versus Washington.
That's a W. They have Washington's number. That's a W for the Giants. Even though my daughter will be working for them this summer, it's still a W for the Giants.
Week 14, home versus Philadelphia.
This kills me. I think Philly's the class of the division. I think they will struggle with that. Another running quarterback. I'm not a big fan of Jalen Hurts, but that wide receiving core is going to make Jalen Hurts look good. And I think that's an L. That's where my streak ends, there with an L.
They're good in the trenches, both sides, man.
Defense, too. Whole defense, yeah.
Week 15 at Washington.
That's a W again. Like I said, I think they have their number. I think that they could scheme and outwit Carson Wentz if he's still healthy enough to play that game.
Week 16, Christmas Eve day at Minnesota.
Yeah, unfortunately, this starts a bad trend. This is an L. I think we talked about it early with certain quarterbacks. Even though Cousins is not upper echelon, he still has a lot of weapons. That's an L. So
Week 17, home, New Year's Day versus the Colts.
I don't see them beating the Colts. The Colts are. I think Matty Ryan's going to have a great year for them. And I don't think he's going to be hurt come this point. I think you guys mentioned something on show 23's, how long he'll last during the season. I think maybe Andrew was at the guest that I think he might have talked about it. I think Matty Ryan's going to have an exceptional year this year, getting away from Atlanta. Jonathan Taylor as his running back. I hope we're competitive, but I think it's going to be an L.
I agree with you about Matty Ryan. He's got a better offensive line in front of him. I think he's going to have a good year. I think that's a good fit for him.
I agree.
I talked about that in the last episode. I think he's going to have a great year, and I don't wish, I know it's a horrible thing to say. I don't wish it, but I would have some concerns at his age with that team. That offensive line, we all talk about Quentin Nelson. They have some good young tackles, but they don't all stay healthy. He's still the Statue of Liberty. I don't know that he'll make it through the whole year.
I don't know. Here's my take. He's this year's Matt Stafford.
True.
Because Indy should have went a lot further than they did because they lost to Jacksonville. They didn't even have a chance to play in the playoffs. Stafford, he's not a mobile quarterback. He's another Statue of Liberty. But he had a good offensive line. If he gets the good offensive line play with Jonathan Taylor, I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that he could have that kind of a year, though.
You're also talking about one of the all-time great arms in the league. The guy still has one of the top 3, 4, or 5 best arms in the league, and he has a quick release. Matt Ryan. What's that?
You're talking about Stafford.
Yeah, and Matt Ryan has neither of those things. He doesn't have a great arm, and he definitely doesn't have a quick release.
Well, I don't know. I just think that fit for him is, like the Stafford fit, because that was a perfect fit for Stafford going to the Rams with those weapons and stuff.
Yeah, and home games in a dome.
Yeah.
All right, here we go, big guy. Last but not least, Week 18, possible playoff spot on the line in Philadelphia. And it might be the Sunday night game because right now it's just to be determined.
Yeah, I hope it's not because I already have that as an L. Like I said, the Eagles are my team to win the NFC East. I think actually with that loss on last day, it will drop them into a tie with the Dallas Cowboys because I have the Cowboys predicted at 9-8. I have the Eagles at 11-6.
So if I'm correct, Steve, he's got them at 9-8.
So you got 9 wins. I'm going to introduce a new question. I wish I would have done it weeks and weeks and weeks ago, so I apologize. I want each of you now, based upon Rob's answers, to give me one win that you think we could steal and one upset you're worried about that. Rob predicted a win, but we might lose it if we're not careful. So give me a win we might steal out of his losses. And Rob, why don't you start with that? If that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. A win, I think that we could steal. It's honestly, it's a toss-up between Baltimore and Indy, but I'll go with Baltimore. I think that if the defense comes together quicker, that we have a chance. That's a team that if we could rattle Lamar Jackson a little bit, I think that we might be able to steal that game. And a game that we should win that we might give away, I'll go with what Carl said earlier is Detroit because they could be better than we think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Carl, what about you?
So according to, and again, using Rob's picks,
yes,
I'm going to say, I would flip the Detroit win to a loss. I've got a sneaky suspicion there. I think there's 2 games that they can steal. So I agree that Tennessee, we're getting them too early. Okay. I agree with Rob. I think Baltimore may be a possibility, but I'm going to dig a little bit here, and I would not be surprised if they beat Dallas Monday night, week 3.
That's a tough call. I hope it happens because I hate losing to the Cowboys, but I just think it's too soon.
My thinking is it's early enough in the season. Let's say they go 1-1. They lose to Tennessee, and then they come back and they beat Carolina in the home opener. All right. So they're 1-1. They've got some confidence. They're feeling good about themselves, and Wink is going to have them jacked up for Dallas. That defense. I think that defense is going to come out looking for blood. I think if the offense plays good against Carolina, which I anticipate them to, they're going to be confident. They always show glimpses against Dallas and then they implode. But there's always a little while, they always seem to run with Dallas. That's a game where I got a sneaky feeling, as Steve asked me the question, that's one I could flip. Steve?
You know what the game I'm worried about. I've said it before, Jacksonville. Everyone hears Jacksonville like, oh, but it's Jacksonville, they suck. Last time they were good was Tom Coughlin. That Trevor Lawrence is gonna, I'm telling you, man. Trevor Lawrence.
You're all over him. I'm waiting for you to show up in a Trevor Lawrence jersey for one of these shows.
I'm just saying, people forget how good he was, and we like to conveniently forget the impact of a great quarterback on a team that we think, oh, they're just average at best. I'm telling you, I'm worried about Jacksonville. I hope they don't go down there and go down there, even if they've had a pretty decent season so far, and go down there and underestimate. They finally got a great coach. The guy's won a Super Bowl. He knows how to win against NFC East opponents, Doug Peterson. Anyway, I'm worried about Jacksonville. And there's two games. I was almost tempted to say Green Bay, and I know that sounds crazy, but teams play differently when they go overseas. Aaron Rodgers is one of the all-time greats. He's mobile. He's probably going to give us fits, but he literally lost every single wide receiver. They drafted a kid in, what was it, the second or third round, who's not going to exactly jump in there the very first game and be an all-pro. I mean, they have great running backs and they have a very good offensive line still, but who the hell is he going to throw to? So I was thinking, well, maybe Winkle just throw the kitchen sink at him, get him to make mistakes. And, if our offense is humming, we have a chance. But the two games that I thought we can take are, I know this sounds crazy, Baltimore or Tennessee. And I'm almost leaning more towards Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill's on his last year. He had a horrible end of the season. They drafted a young quarterback for a reason, and they just traded away their best wide receiver, their game changer. So they still have an okay receiving core. They got Derrick Henry, but guess what? That's the strength of our defense probably, is the front seven and stopping the run. So if we can contain Derrick Henry and pressure Ryan Tannehill into mistakes, which you can do, guys, you can pressure him into mistakes and turnovers. We saw at the end of the season. With our new offensive line, you never know. Maybe we come out of training camp and catching Tennessee in the very first game, they may be underestimating us. So, yeah.
But can you imagine going into Monday night at home against Dallas 2-0?
Listen,
think
guys,
about that.
Make no mistake, Tennessee is not Kansas City.
Right.
Ryan Tannehill is not Justin Herbert. He's not Joe Burrow. This isn't the Cincinnati Bengals with four amazing wide receivers and an amazing young quarterback. It's freaking Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee. They have a very good offensive line and a beast of a running back. And they just trade away their game-changing wide receiver. So you never know.
Interesting. All right, guys. Well, we'll see how it turns out. Rob, great job tonight. Great show.
Well, I appreciate you having me. It was fun, entertaining. It was I gained some knowledge. I mean, you guys do a great job with your research, and that's one of the things that I love about watching the show, is that it's research driven. You guys really want to hit home on points. You do the research, and then you make it easy to understand and fun to understand. So I thank you guys.
We appreciate that. Good stuff, Rob. Steve, as always, great job. Thank you so much.
You as well, guy. Always fun.
Yeah, always is. Everybody, thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another show, and we'll put it out there on Twitter when this one's available. It should be available tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. Guys, thank you. Have a good night.